Hello. All right. A lot of people have been running into the issues of not understanding like file input output. And so I'm here to kind of explain the idea of file input output. Um, I'll kind of go over try and accept as well, but you should have already watched the try and accept videos from this week's module and have a good understanding of it already. If you haven't watched it already, go watch that first before you come here because I'm not going to explain exactly what try and accept does, but I'm just going to be using it. Yeah, that's the idea here of this video. Okay, so first things first, you need to understand that file input output has nothing to do with um, the redirection arrows. The way that we have been doing like input and output is literally using the redirection arrow to take like to force the input to be inputted automatically. So what I mean by that is like running the command pi, and then let's say you're using Kalkudoku because you guys just did that recently. Kalkudoku.py, and then you take in like a test1 uh, dot in, and then you write it out to like a my test1 dot out, right? This right here is known as uh, like it's more like automating the process of manually inputting like text. Right. So that's like if someone has the input command and then like they're expecting input via the command line interface, then that's when you would use this style of taking an input and output is when they use something like this. If you just want to open a file to look at the contents in the file, then that's file IO. That has nothing to do with uh, taking in inputs. So yeah, so that's the idea of like so this is more of this style of um taking in arguments basically. And so the idea here is you're going to be using command line arguments to figure out which argument is your input file and then your output file, or like the name of your input file and the name of your output file, and then you're going to use that to try to open those file. And so, if you haven't already, you're gonna need to use sys.argv. I I'm not positive if there is a module on that. I think there is because otherwise you wouldn't know how to use any of this. So yeah, sys.argv. I think you need to import sys in order to make it work. But yeah, sys.argv is a way for Python to recognize what is being inputted as the as part of the arguments when you run the Python program, basically. So by default, the name of the Python file that you're running is the first argument. So I'm just gonna do a simple print and then sys.argv, and we'll see what happens when I run file IO, right? So when I run file IO, sys.argv is a list of strings containing any command line argument after the actual like command itself, which is in this case the first command after, or the first argument after the command is file IO. So the file that you're running itself is the first argument. And then let's see. So let's just do like potato, third arg, fourth arg, potato 2, right? So you see like it So you see how because I separated fourth and arg here, they're two different command line arguments basically. They're separated here because I kept third arg into one. Then basically that keeps it as one like argument. And so you're going to be using this to try to understand and see where your input and file input and output files are. Um, that's also going to be helping you with the flag thing for lab 7. So yeah. So now um, the way that you're going to be doing this is you're going to be trying to figure out where the in file is coming from and where the out file is coming from. And so here with this example that I use when I'm running the Python program, the in file is my second argument, my second argument and second element of this array. and the out file is the third argument. I just said end file and out file here, but you just want to put the name of the end file here. So in this case, if I want to test underscore n.txt, then I should be doing this as my end file, test underscore n.txt. Let's say I want to name my out file, test out one or test out.txt, right? Then that means that, when I run this, then this is the command line arguments that I'm gonna be getting. So that's how you get the actual like command line arguments, and that's important for Lab 7 and for Project 4. And just moving forward in general, you're going to be using sys.argv in future classes. Yeah, so that's sys.argv. Now we're trying to understand how to open files and how to kind of use them. So there's many ways to open a file. You can literally just say the open function and then just open like the name of the file that you want to do. So in this case, if I just did test underscore n.txt, it's gonna open that file, and then and then you want to specify the mode that you want to read it in. There's 5 modes. There's R, there's A, and there's W, and there's like a whole bunch more. I think there's like RW too, and but the important ones that we're going to be using here is just read and write. R and W, read and write. So read mode only allows you to read. Write mode only allows you to write. And so for this one, we just want to read this test input file. We don't want to write into the input file. We just want to read from it. So we're just going to use the R mode, and then we're just going to open this, and we're going to just set this to F. That's one way of opening it. But if you open it this way, you need to always remember to close it afterwards. If you don't close it afterwards, there's a possibility that the file might corrupt because you opened it, but you never closed the file. So the session could still be messed up by Python. Possible. Um, there's a safer way of opening it so that you don't have to close it. It'll automatically be handled by Python. It's the with statement. So by using the with statement, this is a better like Python standard way of opening files. So with open, uh, same thing. So with open test underscore n dot txt as f. F is the name of, oh, sorry, in read mode, f is the name of the file that I opened, or the variable corresponding to the file that I just opened. Keep in mind, when you open a file, it's like a class file type, right? It's not something that you can just iterate over. So I've seen a lot of people do something like for line and f. F is not an iterable. Like iterables are things like strings because you can iterate through them, like right. So you can go like for each char and like A B C D, right? So strings are iterable. You can do like for element le in no like a list, right? So you can get like banana and apple from this list, and this means that you're able to get each character, you're able to get each element within these iterables. So strings and lists are iterables, but a file type is not iterable, or at least it's it the way that it was implemented. It's not iterable. So doing this is wrong. You can't iterate in F because F is a file type. So what you have to do is you have to read the contents from F first. That's the method read lines. So I would say lines equals f.readLines. So there's many methods that you can run here. There's read, there's readable, read line, read lines. I think read just reads a single character. Readable just checks if it's a readable thing. Read lines read line reads a single line, and then read lines reads all the lines and just stores it as a list. So let's see what happens here first. So I'm gonna comment this out, and then I'm just gonna print lines, right? So what's to be expected here is that it should, read all the lines from this file, and it should print it out to me. So if I do this, yeah. So let's comment this sys.argv out because we don't need that anymore, because we know like it's gonna do this right here. So look at that. So perfect, right? So it did give us all the lines from the input file, and I printed all the lines, and all the lines are strings stored inside of a list. So this is just a list of strings. When you read lines from F, it gives you a list of strings. So that means lines is the iterable from F, not F itself. F is a file type. F.readLines is the method that returns you all the lines as a string stored in a list. Now you can iterate through lines. So that's where I say for each line within lines. Now, keep in mind, I said that each element within lines is a string. So that means line is a string. Lines is a list of strings, and the actual individual elements, line is a string. So now that I take each line, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I strip all of the lines um of uh of the like the new line characters and stuff like that, because we don't need this. This is very bad. It's gonna actually affect your results. So we need to do line equals something like line dot strip, and we want to strip it of all like new line characters, basically, or like just like all white spaces and new line characters. No, 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 sorry. Not all white spaces, just new line characters. So now if I run this and then I print each line, so hence I'm printing each line now, so it's going to show all the lines but stripped. So you see how it no longer has the new line characters, or it shouldn't have new line character. Um, let's see, how do we prove that this is true? Okay, so why not just create an array? So like we'll call this parsed lines is equal to this, and every time we parse a line, or every time we strip that, so we're parsing it, we'll just append it back into parsed line. And so now if we print the entire parsed lines, it should show us that we've successfully removed all the new line characters, and we did. So all the new line characters are gone now. So that's what the strip line was for. So that's proof to show that this strip actually does remove the new line character, because you don't want the new line character. It's going to affect your results. Because if you have something like 5 new line character, this is not a number. This is a string, 5 new line character. So that's why. That's why you need to strip it. So now that each line is stripped, now you can do stuff to that line. So you see how it's possible to have spaces in between. So, maybe afterwards you need to make sure that you split, your list, or sorry, you split each line as well. So you also want to do like uh like for each I don't know, we'll call it element list. I don't know. Yeah, sure, sure. We'll call it element list, and that's equivalent to the line dot split. So that's going to split it at the spaces. So we want to split at the spaces. And so this elements list is going to be storing that specific line split by the spaces. So this one doesn't have more than one element. It just has one. So it's just going to be a list containing one string when for element list. And for this one, we're going to have a list containing 3 strings because we're splitting it there. So like that. So that's why. And so now that we have this, basically the idea is to use try and accept to kind of check if they're strings or not, basically, or strings or numbers. That's for lab 7. For lab 7, you're gonna now you're gonna now that you have each element, you're gonna check to see if each element within element list is a string or not. And so yeah, that's basically it. So you're gonna use something like try and accept with the idea of int to make sure that, so you're gonna be using these 3 things to try to check if each element within the element list is a is a number or not. Because if I have like 1 here and then ABC, right? ABCD, and we run this again, what's going to happen is, I get 1 and then I get ABCD here. So we know that 1 is a number, but potato 3 is not a number. It's just a string with, yeah, it's basically potato 3 is just a string, just potato 3. 1 is a string, but then it could be a number, right? It's because you could cast this to a number. That's why you use these 3 things, try, except, and int, to try to see if you have a digit or a number. You can't use things like is numeric. You can't use things like is digit because that completely removes the point of using try and accept because these things already do try and accept for you. Try and accept is meant for error handling, and I'm sure you'll have a better understanding of it if you watched the module. If you haven't watched the module, like I said, go watch it. I'm not going to explain try and accept. I've already explained it in the Lab 7 Discord channel a lot. So you can go there to check stuff out. It could be on there. You can also just go and just watch the module, like actually spend time trying to understand it. You're not going to be able to do Lab 7 easily if you don't understand how any of this works. So try to understand open, try to understand, you know, um, sys.argv and try and accept. So I will put the things that you will need to understand in order to complete Lab 7. Um, file IO stuff. That's things like open. Um, you will need sys.argv. So that's to handle like command line arguments. And then you will need things like try and accept. Try accept. And that will handle the error checking. It's error handling, and it's meant for you to be able to check for error handling, to check for existence of ints and files. Or yeah, it's just basically error handling. I'm not gonna write the rest. You guys get the idea. If you understand try and accept, you will understand why you need try and accept to check for integers and to check if file exists, basically. But these are the 3 things that you need. These will be used for Project 4 as well. So if you don't understand this, it's going to be very hard for you to do Project 4. You might never do Project 4 if you can't even do Lab 7. So make sure you understand these concepts really well and make sure that you understand that um, why these are useful, basically. Because you will be using all of these in future classes if you do continue to take CPE classes or as like computer science classes, basically. So yeah, that's pretty much it.